Settle in, guys. I think it's going to be a long one. Hello, and welcome to what I think is episode 95 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a bi-weekly chit-chat all about the joys of knitting. I think it's episode 95. I just deleted a whole bunch of the old files from the other ones, and I think the last one was 94. Who knows? Anyway, my name is Andy, and thanks for joining me this week. If you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for anything, links to anything that I mentioned or anything like that, if you're watching via the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything is linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post. You can go there, and then, like I said, everything will be linked right below the video. I was also thinking maybe I will start trying on YouTube to put in timestamps for like sort of the different segments, I guess. Maybe I'll give that a shot, and you guys can let me know if you like that or not. Especially because, like, for episodes that I think are going to be a little bit longer, that way you can kind of maybe skip past things that you're not interested in. So we'll give that a shot. Today is Sunday, June 17th, which is Father's Day here in the United States, so happy Father's Day. And this episode should go up on Tuesday, June 19th. Yeah, sorry my hair's a little bit messy. I just got out of the shower. It has been the day of adulting here at Casa Purlbug. What time is it? It is 10:45. I have already gone and bought groceries. I have prepped all of my lunches for the week. I have dinner for both tonight and the rest of the week in the crock pot. And I have swept my entire apartment. And what else have I done? I just showered. So it's been a pretty productive morning so far. I need it to be a very productive day today because turns out right now don't have a lot of time during the week to get things done, which we'll talk about later. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about finished objects, which I have none of, works in progress. We're going to talk about what's coming up next, / the state of the stash, which I think might be the title for this episode. But I kind of want to go through my stash and talk a little bit about sort of longer term plans, and I'll explain why I've been thinking about that once we get to there. I have a little bit of dyeing to show off. We'll talk about knit along stuff and question of the week, and then we will do some chit chat. So my guess is that this episode will probably be one of the ones that's closer to an hour, but we'll see. Maybe if I just stop rambling about how long it's going to be, it won't be so long. I also feel like I have such a hard time trying to get this camera exactly right because it's not actually on a tripod. It's on the back of a kitchen chair. I have this chair that I can put the camera on the back. You guys don't care. Anyway, so I don't have any finished objects. I do have a half object, and that is this guy, which is my furrow sock. I showed this off last time. I forget exactly where I was in it, but this one is done. I have not started the second one yet because this one is a little bit too small. So that's why I've just sort of put it on hold. But as a reminder, this is my hand-dyed yarn, and of course it's getting really blown out, which is super cool. Anyway, that's what it looks like. So this is my hand-dyed yarn. It's on the Knit Picks Felici base, and it's just sort of this like pink and green. And the pattern is furrow. And I was knitting this 70 stitches on a US 0, which is a 2mm needle. And the reason I was doing that is because, in my experience, garter stitch tends to be a little bit stretchier laterally than stockinette. So, if I'm knitting a pair of socks for myself on a US 0, I typically do I do 72 stitches, so I was like 70 should work. Except it is like borderline too tight. Like, I think I can get it on my foot, but it's kind of too tight. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna do with it. I'm thinking I might rip this out and use this yarn because obviously I still have the rest of the ball, but I might rip it out and use it to make a pair of like short socks, like a pair of Rose City rollers basically, and do that. I just haven't committed to it yet, which is why this has just been sitting by its lonesome. So yeah, you win some, you lose some. Like it's maybe it's reassuring to some of you guys who are newer sock knitters that, like, even though I have knit a lot of socks, I still don't always manage to get the size right. I think because I was maybe just a little bit stressed out when I was knitting this and I was pulling really, really tight. Like, I already knit at a really tight gauge, and I think this one maybe I pulled especially tight, and that's why it's so small. Who knows? But yeah, so that's that. Oh, I guess I have another half object. Okay, so that's that. And then I have another half object to show you guys, which could really use my sock blockers. I am just 100% unprepared for today. Okay, so this is another sock. Boom. You may recognize this yarn from last time. This is the self-striping yarn that I dyed up, which again is getting completely washed out by the camera, but I have one of them done. And this is a little preview towards the chit chat, but like I had said that this was going to be the yarn that I would use for the next time I had travel knitting when I went to go see Wesley again. And this means that I have seen Wesley since the last time I recorded, and now. So we'll talk about that later. But this was indeed my travel knitting the last time I went down to Alabama. And I finished this sock on the flight back home. So this sock took me 5 days total. And so it's my self-striping yarn. Like I said, this is on the Knit Picks Stroll Sparkle base, which is a Stellina base. I did this 4-stripe dyeing, and then Fish Lips Kiss Heel in some leftover yarn from my paraphernalia socks, just because I thought I thought it went well. It's contrasty, but it's not too contrasty. Yeah, this is another 72 stitch sock on a 0. This one actually fits. I wasn't pulling too hard. I did sort of my typical toe. I actually did these toe up, which is pretty unusual for me, but I find that if I know in advance I'm going to be doing a short row heel, I don't really have a preference for toe up or top down. Because the short row heel, you kind of just put it in whenever you're ready, regardless of which direction you're going. So I was like, I haven't done a toe up sock in a while. Let's do a toe up sock. So I did that. I sort of did my normal rounded toe. It's the exact same toe that's in the Exceedingly Vanilla sock pattern for the 72 stitch sock, just done in reverse. So like, you reverse the decreases for the increases. 85 rows of foot and then 80 rows of leg. And then I actually did a folded cuff for this. So you can see, maybe there, you can see the seam for the cuff. And I think that might be my new standard for just plain vanilla socks, because I really like it. I like the look of it. I really hate doing ribbing. I really hate ribbing. And I find that I don't necessarily depend on the ribbing at the top of my sock to keep it up anyway. So this is just a lot easier, and I like the look of it. It's nice and neat and tidy. So maybe I'll make that sort of my new standard. I don't know. But yeah, so this one is done. And then the second one, I just put the heel in last night. So you can see the little heel on there. And I'm maybe 7 rows past the heel. So that's that one. This has sort of been my at-home sock knitting. Like I said last time, I sometimes like to go between sort of bigger projects like shawls and socks, just to kind of, because the difference in, gauge and tension just kind of helps to keep my hands from getting too worn out. So this has been sort of my sock for, at home when I'm, chatting with Wesley at night or something, because again, it's completely vanilla, so I don't really have to think about it. And it's, small, it doesn't sit on my lap or anything, so it's really nice for days too when it's like really hot. So that's that. Yeah, I think I said these are 72 stitches on US 0. Yeah, that's what this is. So that's that. And then I have another sock that I'm working on, but I will wait to show you guys that one because that's the newest cast on. This actually, if I'm going in terms of like oldest to newest, this one should have been shown a little while ago, but this is my Match and Move by Martina Bem. I showed this off last time. This is sort of a big asymmetric triangular shawl that is made in the same sort of shape as like the Find Your Fade. That shape is having a moment right now, and this is the same sort of shape. So this is where I am now. I've made a decent amount of progress since the last time you guys saw it. And I'm actually now into the part where I'm done doing increases. Let's see if I can figure out how to show this. And I'm now shuffling stitches from one side to the other. So I talked about this last time, but when you're doing this type of shawl, the punchline of how to do it is basically that for the first section, you're increasing to create this sort of symmetric wedge. And you combine increases and decreases, and that's what sort of gives you the chevron shape and the spine down the center. You can kind of see there's this spine down the center. And then once you get to the second part, what you're doing is you're keeping your stitch count constant, but you're just shuffling stitches from one side of the center line to the other. So now this is, you can see this side has sort of a little point on it. This is the side that is losing stitches. So I'm shuffling stitches from this side over to this side. And I will basically just continue doing that until I run out of stitches, and then you're done. You bind off and you're done. And that's what creates this sort of point. It's sort of a shallow triangular shawl, similar to like bias shawls. Is kind of what this shape winds up being. So yeah, I am knitting this again out of my own hand-dyed yarn. It's sort of this Vikings themed colorway. So the majority of it is sort of a purple and white, and then you can see the yellow stripes that are happening in there. Those are happening every 25th garter ridge, so every 49th and 50th row. And I am knitting this on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle, which I think actually is the needle called for in the pattern. I think I said last week that I couldn't remember if it was or not. I think it is. And I am almost done with my first ball of the purple and white yarn. So I need to start alternating skeins soon to put in the second one, but I'm trying to purposely push past the point when I would normally start alternating skeins, because normally I start doing it too soon. Especially because I'm not like really trying to create a fade here. I'm just trying to, blend the seam. Normally I do it too soon, and then it's like I feel like I'm just sitting there alternating skein forever, and I hate alternating skeins. So I'm trying to push myself past the point where I feel comfortable with it, in the hopes that then I will actually do it at an appropriate point. So I might knit one more row and then alternate skeins for a few rows, because I dyed these skeins at exactly the same time, like in the same dye pot. So of course there could be differences, but I don't think there's going to be much difference between the two of them. So yeah, that's that. Again, this is sort of my just sitting at home watching YouTube or something, or chatting with Wesley sort of knitting, because it's just really brainless. And I just go on it, and we'll see how long it takes. Like now the rows are, while they aren't changing in size, they are pretty long, like they're about 200 stitches long. So it's not super quick anymore. So, if I don't finish it anytime soon, that's okay. I'll just keep picking at it until I finish it. Yeah, so that's my sort of big project right now. And let me go ahead and pause, and I'll start a new clip, and then I will show you guys my newest cast on, because I'm pretty excited about it, and I know I'm going to talk about it for a while, so I want to make sure my computer doesn't run out of memory or just will to live before I can get finished through that clip. Okay, let's talk about this new yarn, because it is just gives me life. So this was sort of an impulse purchase, and it's so the yarn is from a dyer whose shop is called Luna Pearl Yarns, and she dyes these amazing self-striping colorways, and lots of like neons and just really fun stuff. And I had seen this colorway on Instagram, and it just, like I said, just gives me life. And the colorway name is called Tropic of Calculus. And part of it's like the name I really love, but like just the colorway itself is just amazing. And so she basically, as of right now, like can't keep this in the shop. Like it, she dyes it in relatively small quantities. And so whenever she has a shop update, it's kind of like, it's just gone immediately. So I had seen that she was going to be dyeing up some more, and I was like, I want this. And so I was basically like stalking her Instagram for when she said it was up. And, I was like already logged into like Etsy and everything on my phone. I was like ready to go. And it was really funny because it actually went up while I was like having coffee with a friend. And I had warned my friend, I'm like, by the way, I'm trying to get this yarn. So like if I have to, stop and do this, that's why. And yeah, so I was like, oh God, must pay for yarn, And I think I actually might have cart jacked it from someone else, because it said like more people had it in their carts than there were actually skeins available. But I don't feel bad because I really wanted it. So, and it, like I said, it was kind of an impulse purchase. It was kind of a splurge as well, because this yarn was $40 for a single skein of sock yarn. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's not worth it, because for one thing, I really love it. And for another thing, especially after, my own experience doing like one skein of self-striping yarn, like it's a lot of work. Like there's a lot of work that goes into it. And like the more stripes and like the more complexity to the pattern, like the more work you put into it. And so like, given how complex this pattern is, like I definitely think it's worth $40. But it was just kind of like, man, that's like a splurge. So let's show you what it looks like. So this is how it looks in ball form. So you can start to sort of get an idea of it. And of course it's really washed out by the window. And I have been knitting just a pair of vanilla socks out of this. I've sort of decided that this is going to be my knitting for like during the summer at work, like while I'm teaching and stuff like that. Like this is going to be my knitting for work, because I'm so excited about it. And so it just makes me excited to knit on it at work, like when I get those little moments. So this is what it looks like. Oh, wholly blown out by the light, Batman. Okay. Well, luckily, I thought about this, and I took a picture of this, so I will put a picture in here so you can see what it looks like. But I am, more than one full striped sequence in, and I just 100% love it. I just can't even with this. I love how there's like the mix of the neons and like the baby pink and stuff. I just really love it. I'm super obsessed with it. As you can see, this one is being knit top down. I'm again going to be doing that folded cuff because it's a vanilla sock, and I've decided like I'm going to give that a go for a little while. This is also being knit 72 stitches on a US 0, which is a 2mm needle. It's a 75-25 superwash BFL nylon blend. Not sure what else there is to say about it. I'm going to make a fairly long leg on this because I feel like with self-striping yarns, like I want to try, if I'm making socks out of self-striping yarns, I want to try and use up as much of the yarn in the socks as I can, because it's, it's just so hard to use self-striping yarns for other things. So I'm going to make a fairly long leg on this. I'm not sure, I might make it as long as the leg on this one, or maybe even just a little bit longer. We'll see. And then I'm also going to do a fish lips kiss heel on this so I don't interrupt the stripe pattern. And the heel is going to be done in this blue. This is the blue that I used for my sample socks for my vanilla sock pattern. And I think it will, again, it's contrasty, but it like really works with this yarn. I think it will really go well with the yarn. So I'm super excited to see how that looks when I go to put it in. But I am currently 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 rows in. So yeah, maybe I'll do like a 90 row leg instead of an 80 row leg. We'll see. But I'm super excited about this. I'm just loving it, loving it, loving it. And yeah, like I said, it just makes me really excited to knit on it while I'm at work, especially because like a lot of my knitting time this summer is going to come from when I'm teaching labs, which again, we'll talk about that in the chit chat. But yeah, I'm just can't even with it. So it's been pretty great. So yeah, I guess we will, okay, let's talk about some new additions to my stash, and then I will gather up a whole bunch of stash stuff and we'll talk about that. But first, sort of like a big new addition to my stash, other than, this, of course. And this was another sort of impulse purchase, but someone told me, and I forget exactly who it was, but someone sent me an email saying like, hey, did you know that the dyer behind, I think it's No Makers, is shutting down their shop, and she's selling off all of her bare yarn at a pretty good price. And I was like, I did not know this, but now this is great. So I forget exactly what her name is. I didn't really know about Gnome Acres beforehand, and I hesitate to even link to it now because, like I said, she's closing up her shop, I think at the end of July. So maybe I'll link to it, we'll see. But yeah, she has made a decision to stop dyeing yarn, which, happens. And so she's been selling off her, she's selling off her remaining stock, and then she's also selling off what's left of her bare yarn at a discount. And so she has, some that she's selling off as single skeins and some that she's selling off as like 10 skein packs, because that's how it comes from the mill. But I mean, that's pretty standard. Like if you buy yarn in bulk, it's pretty standard that it comes in like 1 kilo packs, which is 10 skeins. And yeah, and it was at enough of a discount, and I've been wanting to get some more bare yarn that I picked up 2 packs. So I picked up one 10-pack of 75-25 superwash merino nylon. I'll grab them even though there's not much to show for them. But yeah, so this is superwash merino nylon, fingering weight, sock yarn, super cool. And then this one is a 75-25 superwash BFL nylon. Again, 10 skeins of it. So that is the last yarn I am buying for this year, with the exclusion of maybe 1 or 2 skeins of like souvenir yarn if I go anywhere special, and there's special yarn that I want to buy. But like, that is the last yarn I'm buying because I need to start knitting down my stash. And the reason for that, I guess I'll do this and then I'll gather stuff up. So So my goal is that I would like to have my stash down to maybe under 10 skeins of yarn total by the end of 2018. And the reason for this is because I am going to be moving at the end of the year. I haven't talked about this on here yet. There's been times where I think I actually have started talking about that and then I've edited it out. And, part of the reason I haven't talked about it is because, like I said last time, I'm trying to keep my personal life just a little bit more personal these days. And it just seemed like it was so far away that it seemed silly to talk about. But now more and more I keep butting up against this issue of I want to talk about this. I want to at least be able to mention it and have it be a thing that I've said, instead of trying to talk around it all the time. Plus everyone knows about it in my real life now, so I don't feel bad about it. But yeah, I'm going to be moving at the end of 2018. I'm going to be moving away from Richmond. I have already put in, when I had to renew my lease on my apartment, I only renewed it till the end of December. I've already put in my notice at work, which might seem really, really early to those of you who don't know much about work in academia. But when you're in an academic environment, you kind of have to put in your notice really early, because it's not super simple to hire my replacement, because they actually have to do a faculty search to hire my replacement. And these things take basically an entire semester. So I had to hand in my notice right around the beginning of June, so that they had time to, send it up the chain to the dean's office. The dean approves a new faculty search because there's a cost associated with that as well, because they have to bring in candidates. So the dean approved a new faculty search, and so then during fall semester they will be running this new faculty search to find my replacement. But you have to let them know roughly 6 months in advance that you're leaving. The converse is that they also typically have to let you know 6 months in advance, at least, if you don't get to stay. So it's kind of nice like that. But I don't really know what I'm going to be doing next. I obviously have been applying to jobs and stuff like that. My guess is that sort of the immediate thing is that I will move to Alabama to be with Wesley and probably get a job there, although it's just hard to know what exactly is going to happen. Who knows if Alabama is going to be the permanent spot where Wesley and I wind up, but at least then we can make a decision sort of together, that we are both going to move to somewhere else. We kind of need to find a place where both of us can get work, doing work that we want to be doing, and that's probably going to be somewhere either Alabama long-term or somewhere DC maybe long-term, or if another city kind of pops up as a sort of science, physics, tech hub, maybe that will wind up being what it is. But, we kind of have to make strategic decisions about that. So yeah, that is why I want to try and knit down my stash, is because I don't want to be moving a bunch of yarn at the end of the year. I am also thinking about this in my greater life in general, is sort of trying to start getting rid of things now so that I don't have to be doing it when it's time to move, and so that I just have less things to move, especially because, again, if I'm moving in with Wesley, he has a fully furnished apartment already, so I don't need to move everything. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. It's just it's been a little bit stressful because this sort of looming deadline is so far away, right? I'm moving at the end of the year, which is still more than 6 months away. But at the same time, it's just always kind of there. And so that is part of what's been stressing me out lately. When I've been saying, I'm just really stressed out and I really just can't, my brain just can't handle more stuff right now. Some of that has just been busyness at work, but some of it has been this whole thing of trying to find a new job and planning a move, even though it's months and months away. So that's been just sort of a low level stressor in my life for a little while now. And now you guys know about it. So now I can talk about it. I probably won't talk about it very much beyond this, except just to mention it every so often. But yeah, now the cat's out of the bag and you guys know. So let's talk about this whole knitting down my stash thing. So I'm going to go ahead, pause. I'm going to clear off all the stuff that's here now. I'm going to grab my stash and we can take a look at what's there. And I'm going to be asking you guys for some suggestions on things. Stash time. Okay, so let's talk about the state of the stash and what I have to try and knit down before the end of the year. And you might be wondering, okay, if you wanted to have your stash pretty down by the end of the year, why did you buy 20 more skeins of yarn? And part of that is for things like prizes for knit-alongs and stuff like that. Another is because I have been thinking about trying to knit another sweater lately, and I didn't have a sweater's quantity of anything. So, you know, I know that there's going to be a couple more big projects that I'm going to want to do before the end of the year, and that required, you know, a decent amount of yarn to either dye or buying yarn that was already dyed, which is not very economical if I know how to dye yarn. So that's why, right? But the whole point being, I would like to reduce all of this down to something that would fit in a bread box by the end of the year. So let's talk about what we've got. Obviously, I have all the bare yarn that I talked about, which I don't exactly know what I'm going to do with it yet. So, you know, I will kind of dye it up as I come to it. I also have, speaking of bare yarn, I have this one skein of the Knit Picks Capretta that I bought back when I bought a bunch of bare yarn from Knit Picks. And I haven't dyed it yet, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it. I think I've decided that what I want to do with it, because this is their MCN, but it is not superwash, and so obviously I don't really want to use it for socks. I don't even really want to use it for like mitts or hand warmers or anything. Like anything that's going to get a lot of wear, I don't want to use this for. So I think what I might do with this is knit up a hat with it, because I love my hat that I've been using for the past couple winters, but I would really like another hat. Like I basically only have the one hat that I wear. So I think I might use this to knit the, what is it, the Constellate hat? I'll put in pictures and names and of course all that kind of stuff, and I'll link everything. But I'll try and grab pictures from Ravelry pages for any specific patterns that I mentioned that you may not already know. But it's this really beautiful hat that I think the picture on the pattern page, the hat is sort of like this like dusty mauvey pinky kind of color, and so I might try and dye this up in a color that's similar, or you know, some other sort of pastel-ish, you know, less saturated color to knit that hat. So that's my thought on what's going to happen with this. So it's just a matter of like I have to get up the courage to dye it, because I haven't done a ton of dyeing with non-superwash yarns. So I just have to, you know, get up the courage to actually do it. So that's what that's probably going to be. Speaking of non-superwash yarns, so a couple of times I'm going to ask you guys for suggestions to things. So this is sort of my question of the week as well, is like, I need some suggestions on how to use up some of this yarn, because some of it I just don't know what to do with. And so this is the first part of that. And sorry for the crinkling. This is a 5 mini skein set from PhD Yarns that was sent to me, and it's this beautiful gradient set of grays. And it's, so each one, so it's 100 grams total, right? 5 20-gram minis. It's a total of 490 yards. So each mini is about 100 yards. And it's a non-superwash merino, non-superwash 100% merino. So I'm not really sure what to do with this. So I could use some help with this on like something that could utilize these fully. I don't really want to have a bunch of leftovers. So even if it needs like another skein, like if you know of like a shawl or something that could like utilize this, let me know, because I don't really know what to do with them. And I've had them in my stash for quite a while because I just don't know what to do with them. And again, right, it's non-superwash, so I'd like it to be something like a shawl or a hat or something like that. So that's the first thing that I could use some help on, like what do I do with about 500 yards of fingering weight yarn, which is non-superwash, in this beautiful gradient. Okay, so that's that. Another thing that I could use some help on is this. I know I showed this off a while ago. This was a gift from my Canadian friend. He picked this up, I think it's sort of like a craft fair or something, and it is 162 yards of a worsted weight yarn, which is blue BFL and rose fiber, and it's a hand spun yarn. And it's really beautiful, and I really love it, and I just don't know what to do with it, because again, it's 162 yards, which is not a ton. So I'm not exactly sure what to do with it, and it's not superwash, and I don't do a lot with like worsted weight yarn either. So you know, if you have suggestions for what I could do with this, I'm thinking with this maybe it will become either like a hat with maybe like a contrasting brim or something, so I can get the most out of it, or maybe just like a neck warmer, just sort of like a basic cowl or something. But I don't know. Help me out here. 162 yards of a worsted weight yarn, non-superwash. And it's beautiful, like it's really pretty. I just don't know what to do with it. So that's sort of the things that like I have no clue what I'm gonna do with. Now we're into some things that I have some ideas on, but I could still use some help. One of them is this gradient set of these sort of green yarns that I dyed up way back when I first started selling yarn on Etsy. I kept one of the sets for myself. And so it's 100 grams of a superwash Highland nylon blend. So it's maybe only about like 350 yards or so, because these ones tend to be a little short on yardage. So it's enough to make a pair of socks, but I just haven't done that yet. So I will probably just make a pair of socks with this using contrasting heels, cuffs, and toes. But yeah, so it's about 10 gram minis. So if you have a better idea for what I could do with that, let me know. But this is just a thing where it's like, I just haven't done it yet, but I need to just get around to doing it. So that's that. Another one is I have a ball of Regia Perfect in the color 07118. I don't know. It's this. This is one that will just become probably my next pair of vanilla socks. I just need to get it knitted up, and I've been distracted by other shiny things. But, you know, I love Perfect. I've sung its praises before in the past, and so this will just become another pair of vanilla socks. I might actually see if maybe, like, my older brother would want these, because he can be amenable to, like, sort of crazy colored socks, and so maybe I'll make these for him if he wants them, or someone else. I might make them as a gift for someone is the point. Because I have a couple pairs of Perfect socks, and I don't need another pair if I could find someone who would like them. So that's that. Another thing that I have pretty firm plans for, I've shared this before, but this is the yarn that I picked up up in New Hampshire the last time I was up there, I think, or the last time I was up there before Wesley moved. And it's this really beautiful 100% merino, highly variegated yarn. And then this is my hand-dyed yarn on the Knit Picks Stroll Sparkle Base, which is kind of this like orange, semi-solid orange. And these I think I will use to make the Rose Candy by Martina Bem. I've talked about that before. Again, I just have to get around to actually casting it on, which is less of a priority right now that it's summer. But this is something that I think I will probably hit maybe in like August or September, when I'm starting to really like feel the fall vibes, because like, don't these colors just scream fall? So yeah, so that's something I have a plan for. I'm probably just not going to cast it on until closer to fall. So that's that. This one is a skein of yarn that I picked up when I was in Iowa over spring break. And I know I showed it off, but it's this Araucania Huasco sock. It's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon basic sock yarn. And it has these really beautiful speckles on it. And so this one I think will become a pair of Hermione's Everyday Socks for next month probably, because you know it's speckled and our next knit along is speckles, and so I think I'll actually knit to the theme of my own knit along using this. So again, I know what this is going to be. I'm just kind of waiting for the right time to cast it on, but it'll be another pair of sort of just brainless sort of socks. And like I said, I think I'm going to do Hermione's Everyday Socks, but I'm open to other ideas if you have another really fun, sort of brainless sock pattern. I also really like, things like socks on a plane and stuff. So who knows? I may change my mind. But point being is it will become a pair of sort of like what I call nearly vanilla socks, which are, basic and mindless. So that's that. Now I have a couple that I don't exactly know what I'm going to do with. So I also have this skein of a variegated green yarn. And this is sort of the twin to the prize from our last knit along, I think. And no, the one before that, even like the first knit along of the year. I think the twin of this was the prize for that. So I have this, and then this is like the little mini that I dyed up to go with it. I may or may not use the mini with it, but yeah, the problem with this is that like a lot of the sock patterns I sort of have my eye on right now aren't really well suited to like highly variegated yarn. So if I use this for something, it will again have to become a pair of like nearly vanilla socks. So again, give me some suggestions on nearly vanilla socks. If you know of a pattern that's maybe not a super popular one, let me know, because I don't really know what to do with this. And I think it wants to be a pair of socks. I just can't decide what to make it into. Or, like a fingering weight hat or something like that, or like a cool cowl or something. Let me know if you have any thoughts on what I could do with something that is like pretty variegated. So there's that one. And then I also have this, which is sort of the opposite. This is a very solid tonal, I guess. It's not completely solid, but it's relatively solid. And this is the Knit Picks, their Highland sock. I think it's an 80/20 Superwash Highland Merino, in this sort of mint colorway that I dyed up. This one I'm thinking will become a pair of like cabled socks. I'm not exactly sure what, but because it's so solid, I think it will work well for, a sock pattern where like there's some detailing in the stitch pattern. So that's that one. I don't have an idea yet exactly what I want it to be. I think maybe I like the beekeeper socks for it, but I'm open to other suggestions. And then I also have this, which is a skein that's been in my stash for quite a while. This is a 2-ply 75/25 Superwash Merino nylon. It's the same base that I knit but the dotted rays out of forever ago. And this is my Juliet is the Sun, and this is this really beautiful variegated pinks and oranges, and there's a little bit of blue in there. And this one, again, it's like I don't really know what to do with it because I feel like it wants to be part of like a bigger thing, but I don't exactly know what. So again, if you can think of like a shawl or like something that would, where it's like I could add a couple skeins to this and make it into like a big, beautiful project that would be on display, let me know, because I don't think it wants to be socks because it's just so pretty and I don't really want to hide it in shoes. I want it to be like a thing which is out there. I just don't know what to make with it. Help me. So that's that one. And so those are like the full skeins that I have. And this is not my entire stash. I have some other stuff in my stash that like I kind of need to just like box up and donate because it's not going to get used, or like I don't really know what to do with it. Stuff that's like been gifted to me and that kind of thing. But I sort of just need to decide what to do about that stuff. But then, so this is a thing where I could really use some help. And so you guys know, I haven't shown it off in a while, but I have my granny stripe blanket, and that's where I've been using up all my like little scraps. And I try to like put things into that are maybe like under 20 grams worth of yarn, because kind of more than 20 grams, I feel like I could actually do something with that, and I don't necessarily know that I want it to be in a scrappy project. But the problem with that sort of idea is that I have this basket, which is full of sort of yarn remnants which are between about 20 and 50 grams, right? It's like most of them are under 50 grams, but they're above 20 grams. And like these are leftovers from things like knitting Wesley socks, right? So I have not quite half a skein left, but a decent amount left. So I have that one. I have another one from a pair of Wesley socks. I had that light gray yarn that I used for those mitts that I made. That was another remnant from a pair of Wesley socks. I have almost a full skein of black yarn because I hate knitting with black yarn. I have, a whole bunch of remnants from making myself stuff. So like these are still leftovers from my Undine socks because I don't think I'm going to knit the other colorwork mitt that I was making out of them. So like these are somewhere between 20 and 50 grams. This is somewhere between 20 and 50 grams. This is from my cherry blossom socks. Leftover from my Christmas, like chocolate peppermint bark socks, whatever. This green, sort of lime green yarn that was originally like a flax light and has just been sort of used and frogged for quite a while. I have this. I have this, bright pink that was from my failed pole dance socks. I have leftovers from the heels, cuffs, and toes of my vanilla socks. I have, oh man, this is like an opal that's like really, really old. Red, like this solid red from the vivid cowl that I made. Another little, but this probably I should actually go in with the granny stripe blanket. But this is leftovers from those vanilla socks. Leftovers from the traveling cables hand warmers that I made. This I think is almost a full ball of like Knit Picks Felici in the Madrigal colorway. This is leftover from my short speckled space socks, the orange. Like it's just, this is left over from the dotted rays. So it's just like, I don't know what to do with this stuff. I could use some ideas on like what to do with these sort of like bigger scraps, because like I said, I don't necessarily want to put them into my granny stripe. I do want to put them in, but I'd rather put them in when they're down to like 5 gram balls. So I don't know, maybe I'll just start making a bunch of like Rose City rollers and just do, contrasting heels, cuffs, and toes as necessary, or just make a bunch of single socks, because that was a thing I had planned to do forever ago, and then I got discouraged because I couldn't quite get the sizing right. But now I think I've sort of figured it out. So maybe I'll just start working on a bunch of single socks for short socks, because I've been wanting more short socks. And so maybe that's what I need to do. But if you have any other ideas, let me know, because these are like the things that are really hard to figure out what to do with them, because like there's not enough even for like a pair of short socks with contrasting heels, cuffs, and toes of like the same, yarn. So it's like I kind of don't know what to do about them. But it's like, but I don't want to just put them in my scrappy projects. So like that's really, I would like to have that cleared out by the end of the year, because I don't want to like bring a bunch of this stuff with me. So yeah, I feel like that's been a lot of talking. That is the state of the stash as of June 2018. And like I said, I would really like to get, this stuff doesn't seem like so much, but like it's, like I said, I have a lot of yarn that like just needs to get boxed up and like passed on to someone else or donated or something. So I would like to get that out of my apartment sooner rather than later. And I would also like to, knit this stuff down. And I'm sure that like I'm also going to be using these. So like by the end of the year, I would like to reduce all of this to, roughly 10 skeins of yarn that I have to move with me. So yeah, we'll see. I'll keep you guys updated on how that goes. But yeah, I'm going to save this clip and then we'll come back. We'll talk about a little bit of dyeing and knit along stuff, and then we'll do a little bit of chit chat. What happened here? Okay. Let's talk dyeing. Computer, are you freaking out on me? No. Okay, let's talk dyeing, which also requires, which also sort of ties in with talking about the knit along. So our current knit along is actually drawing to a close. I was just looking at my calendar, and it looks like I will not, the next time I will record will be July 1st. So I will actually be able to draw a winner the next time I record, but that means this is the last time I will be talking about our current knit along. So let's show off the prize, which includes some of my dyeing. So this is going to be part of the prize for the current knit along. And like I said, the next knit along is speckles. Let me actually look so I can tell you exactly what the theme of the next knit along is, so that those of you who want to prepare can prepare. So the theme of July and August is little things. That's sort of like the big theme. And then, so the technique for that is all over patterning, and the color is speckles of any color, right? Just any sort of speckles. So I guess I hadn't really planned about talking about the next knit along, but let's talk about that, right? So for that all over patterning, that basically is anything which is not vanilla, which has some all over pattern for the entire thing, right? So something like Hermione's Everyday Socks, even like socks on a plane, or like a hat that has some sort of basic texture pattern, like anything that has some sort of, even just a very basic pattern that is over the entire thing. And of course, over the entire thing being, I would say 50% of the surface area of the project. So like if you're going to knit a pair of socks, but you're the type of person who only likes to knit a pattern along the front of the sock, that's totally fine. It's not enough to just do like a little band of something around the top, or something like that. And all over patterning can be also color work if you want to do color work. So I guess this is another one where like if you wanted to do self-stripe, like manual self-striping socks, you could do that. Or like scrappy socks or something, or like actual like stranded color work or mosaic color work, or I'm trying to think of what else could possibly fit into this. Yeah, basically anything but vanilla. Or speckles, right? So the speckles can be any color, and they don't necessarily have to be all over speckles. So like this yarn is the prize, and like you guys know, I like to make the prize sort of fit with the theme of the next knit along. So like this one, you can see there's just, okay, no, you can't see it because it's going to get blown out, but that's okay because I took pictures. So I'll put pictures up on the screen. So this skein, sort of the main color is sort of this pale yellowy green color. And then there are little bits of blue speckles throughout, like, but it's not heavily speckled, as you can see from the pictures. It's a pretty, light speckling. So for the speckles, I'm going to say that like, I'll just sort of play it by ear, but basically as long as there are speckles, it doesn't have to be like a completely speckled yarn. It can be a yarn with just a little bit of speckling in it, as long as you can actually see the speckles in the finished product. Okay, so but anyway, so this is part of the prize for the current knit along. And then the other part is a thing that I have been talking about, but I haven't really shown it off super properly. So this is a project bag from Stitching Plaza, and this was generously sent to me by the proprietor of Stitching Plaza. And it's this really beautiful project bag. It's a great size for like a pair of socks, or even maybe like a 1 or 2 skein shawl sort of thing. Like it's big enough that like you could fit, I think, 2 cakes in here side by side. So, you know, take that as you will. But it's got this really great, you know, sort of sit flat gusseted bottom. It's a drawstring bag, so it's got a really nice, you know, beefy drawstring along the top. And it's the print on it is like just amazing. It's just perfectly themed, and it's this really great sort of constellation print. And I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but the fabric itself is actually a little bit glittery. Oh, there, you can maybe just sort of catch it. But the fabric itself is sort of glittery, which I think just goes so perfectly with the theme of the next knit along being speckles, because for me, glitter and speckles sort of are very similar concepts. But yeah, so this is the other part of the prize. I realize that like they don't necessarily go together, but you know, hey, life doesn't go together. And I also keep forgetting to mention this, but the person who sent me this, right, the proprietor of Stitching Plaza, also sent a coupon code for you guys to use if you want to get anything from the shop. And it is a 15% off coupon code through the end of this month. So I apologize that I kind of forgot about it, but if you want to take advantage of it, through the end of this month. And the code is 10K pearls, and I'll put that along the screen here. And like I said, that's through the end of the month. So cool. Yeah, so that's that. And like I said, the question of the week was sort of tied up in with like some of that state of the stash stuff in terms of like, help give me suggestions for things to use up my stash. Also, I guess I didn't really mention it, but like, or well, I did mention that I have my eye on some sweaters. So the sweaters that I'm thinking about making are, I have my eye on the long line cardigan by Joji Locatelli, and also the, is it the sparkle cardigan? Also by Joji Locatelli. Both of those kind of look like what it is that I'm looking for, especially the long line one where it's like open front. I really like that. And I think part of the struggle I've had with some of the cardigans that I've knit before, well, I guess I've only knit 2 of them, is that both of those have been based off of the poly pattern, which is a great pattern, but it's a raglan sleeve top-down pattern. And I'm beginning to think that raglan is not a good shaping for my shoulders, right? I just think that based on like sort of the shape and the slope of my shoulders, the sweaters that I've knit which have been raglan sleeves have seemed to just want to kind of slide off of my shoulders. So I'm thinking that set-in sleeves like those 2 cardigans have are probably going to be a good option for me. So my question is, like, if you've knit those, let me know what you thought of them. Or if, you're maybe a person who has not had good luck with open front cardigans and raglan sleeves, did changing to a different sleeve style help? Because obviously like those are pretty big projects, and like I don't really necessarily want to embark on another sweater project that I'm not going to wear, because I honestly don't wear either of my cardigans that I've made so far just because they just don't fit well. Sorry, I have like a hair that I think is like keeps tickling my arm, like a hair that's like gotten stuck in my, you know what I mean. I really don't wear either of those 2 cardigans, and it kind of kills me that I spent so much time working on them. Like obviously I enjoyed the process, but like it kind of kills me that like I don't really want to wear them at all. So so if you have any suggestions for that kind of stuff, or if there's other patterns that you know of that are like fingering weight yarn and set-in sleeves and open front cardigans, let me know, and I'll take a look at them, because I haven't fully committed to anything yet other than just buying the yarn so that I have sweaters quantities worth of yarn to cast on probably once I'm done with my current shawl. I kind of only want to have one big project going at a time. So yeah, that's my question of the week, is just help me use up my stash. But yeah, that's going to be it for the knitting stuff. I'm sorry that this probably is already fairly long. If that's all you were here for, thanks very much for hanging out for so long with me, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm going to get a little drink of water, and then we'll do a little bit of chit chat. Probably not too much, because again, I don't want this to be super long, but we'll do some chit chat so I can catch you guys up on like the craziness that has been my life for the past 2 weeks. This is a bit tangential to the topic at hand, but it has been taking my computer a distressingly long time to save these clips today, and like I think I've talked about this before, but like my computer is a 2012 MacBook Pro, and like it is, I'm feeling the age on it, like more and more. And I want to get a new computer, but like I have a hard time spending a bunch of money when this computer is still working. And I've been having the same thing lately with my phone, where this is a Galaxy S5 from like 2013 or 2014. And it's like sometimes doing that thing where it'll just restart for no reason, or it'll just drop calls for no good reason. It's like I'm afraid that like all of my technology is just going to fail at the same time. And then I'm going to have to splash out a ton of money to replace all of it. It's just like, Anyway, let's talk about what else has been going on in my life. And when I mentioned my granny stripe blanket, I realized I haven't given this thing any love for quite a while. So I was like, let's work on that today while I chit chat. So, let's see here. So I know, and if you see me looking down here, it's because I have my calendar down here, mostly just so I can keep track of like where things are temporally related to each other. So I know I recorded since then, but Wesley was here for Memorial Day weekend, so that was a lot of fun. And then I don't remember if I mentioned it when I recorded last, but I know I mentioned this, but like I am teaching this summer. So I'm teaching an actual course this summer, which is super exciting. And so I have been just like furiously working on that, trying to get that all prepared. But I also knew that like because of that, and just because of sort of the way that my job is over the summer with like everything so condensed, I knew that I wasn't really going to be able to get any time to travel until classes are done in August, right? Basically, I have like a week ish, like 10 days or so between when the summer classes end and when fall classes begin. So like, all right, well, I guess I get to travel during that time, which I will be, but I don't really get any time to travel in between then and now. So I made the decision that even though Wesley was here over Memorial Day, I went to go see him last weekend. So I actually flew out on the 6th and then stayed all the way until the 10th. So Wednesday through Sunday. And it was a really nice trip, like, for one thing, just to be able to spend so much time with him. But it was also really good because I was actually using it as sort of like a working trip. I was working the whole time during the day because I was trying to, get my teaching materials prepared. And sometimes I get a little irked because of the way my job is, like, it's relatively impossible for me to like work from home most of the time because my work requires me to be on campus, which is fine because I don't really like the idea of working from home. I find that I don't really get much accomplished at home, but like it would be a nice option to have sometimes. And so because I kind of had this stuff that like didn't necessarily need to be done on campus, I was like, well, this is a good opportunity for me to like use up my work from home time, while I'm down in Alabama. So I did. When Wesley was at work during the day, I was at work at his place, and I probably got a lot more accomplished than I would have if I would have been on campus because, there was nothing to distract me. I didn't have a car, so I had nowhere I could go. I just had to sit and work all day. So that was a good trip. Really enjoyed it. And then I came back and I was like straight into teaching. So this past week has been the first week of summer semester. Well, not really, because like there's like multiple different summer sessions. I can never keep track of like the summer sessions around here, but like to me, all of the physics courses sort of run along the same sort of 8-10 week, whatever, like the sort of same schedule. So on Monday, the 11th of June, the 8-week session that the course I'm teaching started, and then we have 2 other courses, are 2 calculus-based intro courses. Those are both being taught over that 8-week session. And then we also have our 2 calculus-based intro courses over the 8-week, and then we have the 2 algebra-based courses, which are being taught in back-to-back 5-week sessions. But all of that started on June 11th. So yeah, this past week just felt like it was like infinitely long, and at the same time, like infinitely short. Like it just, every single day I was like, oh my gosh, how is it only Wednesday or whatever? And a lot of that is just because like I had to go into like basically full-time teaching mode, and like that just takes a lot out of you if you're not really used to it, and especially if you're like not an extrovert. Like I wouldn't call myself an introvert, but I'm definitely not an extrovert, and so like it can just be like really draining for me to like be interacting with people for that long every day. So the way that my course is being taught is it's 3 2-hour sessions every week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, bright and early in the morning, I'm there teaching for 2 hours at a time, 3 days a week. And then we're also teaching the lab that goes with the course, because what I'm teaching is modern physics, which is basically all the physics that has occurred since about 1890 until now. And so there's a lab that goes with it, and I teach this lab every semester. It's sort of like the main teaching that I do is this lab. And so that lab is also then being offered over the summer, and that's on Monday and Thursday, and it's a 2-hour session each time. So grand total, I am teaching 10 hours a week. Like that's my like FaceTime with students time. And then there's also, of course, all the prep that goes with it. And then I actually haven't had any grading yet, but like starting Monday, they have to hand in their first homework assignment and stuff. So like then there will be grading that goes along with it, and like office hours and stuff. So like it is, it's an interesting time to be teaching my first course like over the summer, because it's so condensed. But at the same time, like it's kind of nice because there's only 9 people in the lecture, there's only 6 people in the lab, so like the class size is definitely smaller, and like you just get a different caliber of students in the summer. Like I find that students who are willing to take courses in the summer tend to be more motivated and more driven and like just better students. Because you have to pay extra to take courses in the summer, and it's so condensed, and like you really have to like commit to like taking that course. So I really like students in summer courses, and so while the condensed nature of it makes it a little bit tougher, it's also like the fact that the students are better, sort of offsets that. But yeah, so like that's been my week. And plus, the labs for the teaching labs, like the I'm the lab coordinator for, those have also started. And I mentioned before that we got a whole bunch of new equipment for that, and so I was spending most of May sort of testing equipment and rewriting experiments and stuff. So obviously that's all done. But like now, like that's making my lab setup times a lot longer too, because like every time I have to set up a new experiment, it's not just that like, oh, this is a new experiment. It's that like sometimes there are things that still need to be taken out of boxes. Like, oh, I only took 1 setup out of the box, and so I have to take 11 more setups out of boxes, and I have to figure out exactly how do I set these things up for students. And like then when I go to like break it back down, it's like, well, how am I going to store this? So like that's just been, like it's been taking a lot longer than normal. Like on Friday, I spent 2 hours setting up a lab that normally would have taken me 30 minutes. Just because it was like I had to put all these pieces together and, get everything ready. And it was only 6 setups that I had to do. And it still just took so long. Like I was just so exhausted by the end of it. Just like mentally exhausted. So yeah, so that's been my life. Like I said, I don't get to travel at all now until August, which is kind of okay. Like obviously I'm sad that like I don't get to see Wesley until August, and he's not going to be coming up here either, or over here. I always get those things confused. Because I feel like Alabama's way more south than here, but it's not way more south. It's mostly just more west. Anyway, he's not going to be coming over here during that time either, because we both kind of want to use it as a time to just like save up money. So like, plus he doesn't have a ton of vacation time to take either, but like, traveling is really expensive. Like I've actually had friends of mine say like, oh man, I wish I could travel as much as you do right now. And I'm like, no, you don't, because it's really expensive and it chews up a bunch of time and it's not super fun. But it's like, it is just so expensive. And so we're both going to we have about 8 weeks between times that we're going to see each other. So like that's about 4 paychecks for both of us. So like we're just going to use the time to just bank a bunch of money and, kind of get back on top of things before we see each other again. And then when we see each other again in August, that's actually going to be not in either Richmond or Alabama. It's going to be in Minnesota, because my mom is getting married in August. I think I've mentioned that before, but my mom is getting married in August, and so I will be headed back to Minnesota just before the semester starts to go to her wedding. And so that will be a ton of fun. I mean, it's not like this big thing, like it's going to be a pretty small thing, but it will be really nice because it means I will get to see my family and stuff before, the semester starts and all of that stuff. And because of course then once the semester starts, I don't really get to travel much either. It's like, then it's going to be, all right, go, like get everything done. Especially with, the semester and, hopefully finding a new job and planning a move. It's just going to be crazy. Like, just the second half of 2018 is just going to be nuts for me, trying to get everything done, and not just lose it. So yeah, things have just been crazy, but I feel like there's not a ton to like talk about because it's basically just been like teaching. Like, it's just been so much teaching. But I'm really excited because like this first week of teaching was special relativity, which is my least favorite topic that we talk about in modern physics. And like, I don't like it. It's hard to understand, and it's hard, even if like you understand it, it can be hard to convey to someone else who's never seen it before. Like, there's no hard math or anything with it, but like, it's just, well, at least not at the level we're teaching it. But it's just like conceptually, it's very difficult, and I don't particularly enjoy teaching it. So we finished that up in this first week, and so then we're done with that until I have to write the questions for the midterm. And now we're going to be moving into a sort of experimental basis for quantum theory. So things like the Millikan oil drop experiment, what else do? We do Millikan oil drop experiment. We talk about Compton scattering. We talk about black body radiation and the ultraviolet catastrophe, and photoelectric effect and the Frank Hertz experiment. So like all of these sort of experiments that happened right around 1900, late 1800s, early 1900s, to sort of confirm that like, hey, there seems to be, like at small scales, like some fundamental unit of things. So like fundamental units of charge and distance and, stuff like that. And so kind of like all these experiments that sort of told us like, hey, like you maybe need to treat these things a little bit differently. In physics, when there is some sort of like fundamental thing, that sort of leads to things being quantized. So like if you've heard of things being like quantized, or like even just like quantum mechanics, right? Like quantum or quanta deals with like a fundamental unit of something. So like if we talk about like charge being quantized, it means that on a very small level, you only get discrete bundles of charge, right? Like charge comes in these discrete units, and you can either have like 1 unit of it or 2 units of it or 3 units of it, but like you can't have 1.5 units of it. It's sort of like people are quantized, right? You can have 1 person, you can have 2 people, but you can't have 1.5. Well, you can have 1.5 people, but one of them is dead then, and you need to call the cops, right? Like even, if we're talking about like children, it's like, well, that's still 1 unit of person, right? It's a small unit of person, but it's still, people still come in discrete units. And that's sort of how quantum theory works. And so there was all these experiments, blah, blah. I feel like I've been rambling about this. So maybe that's a good sign that it's time to call it a day. Again, I'm sorry if this episode got really long. I just, lots to talk about. So I will see you guys again in July, I guess. Like I said, I'll be recording the next time July 1st, which is weird to think about because like what happened to June? But yeah, I will see you guys again in July. We'll have a new knit along going on. And yeah, hopefully I'll have lots of other exciting things to talk about. So thanks very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye.